blades and putting blades on. They have that blade lock thing, that plastic blade lock thing, that's fine. Just make sure if you use wood that it's soft. Don't take a piece of oak because you might chip the carbide. So use pine or MDF or something like that to lock and unlock your blade. Actually, locking your blade is a lot easier than you think. You don't have to worry about a lot of the proportion. This is all I do. I just, my finger, that's it. It's done. Because the rotation of the blade will tighten up the auger nut anyway. The belt that you get with your saw, and most of your tools, most of your power tools, will be the rubber belts. There's some debate on whether or not they develop memory. I think they do. I don't know how it would really work, but they might. Your best bet is to get rid of that thing and buy one of these. Cost you about $30. These are the link belts. You can open them up very easily, change them to any size you want, but they reduce vibration. I tell you, when I upgraded this, when I beefed up the saw, I noticed that probably about 70–80% difference in vibration. That's how good this thing is. The other very important thing to do is make sure that your pulleys are aligned. Your auger pulley is aligned to your saw pulley, your motor pulley. Every model has a different method of doing it, and it's not an easy thing to do, but with a straight edge, generally, you can get in there to do it. Also, most table saws come with fast pulleys, but you're in for a treat if you change them to machine pulleys, precise machine pulleys. I did that on this. Again, vibration changed even better. I could stand a nickel on the end of this thing and it won't move. And I also upgraded by putting a larger pulley. I think it was on the motor side. So it increased the RPM on this thing. Because this is 1.5 horsepower. And it's never really bogged down too bad for me, but it was better to increase it when I could. And putting these belts on is a snap.
Mike, how much blade exposure should you have going through a piece of hardwood?
Question is, how much blade exposure do you want? Forrest recommends as high as you can go. Of course, you increase your risk of your safety factor becomes an issue. But the higher the blade, the cleaner the cut you will get. You'll get a less chance of burning because the heat buildup won't be so close to the workpiece. Anybody else have something to add on that?
At least give me a
horsepower ratings on the motors and how accurate they are.
Oh, yeah. If anybody looks in the front of this saw, you'll be as fooled as I was. Well, you probably won't be, but I was. 3 horsepower. It stands right out of it, 3 horsepower. And in very small letters, max developed. So it's 1.5 horse. But I tell you, if you want to invest in a saw and you don't have the money for a cabinet saw, you get a contractor saw and upgrade the fence, the pulley, the pulley's the belt. You got yourself a great saw. I really don't need to go to a cabinet saw anymore.
Mike, one thing, my first saw was the Powermatic Artisan. I don't know if that's what that was or not. I called Powermatic because I didn't like the motor it came with. And they told me that they thought a contractor saw you could take as high as 2 horsepower if you got a bigger motor.
Grizzly makes a 2 horsepower contractor.
They said don't go above it because you could crack the frame holding the motor.
Right. Yeah. So these are really designed for that size motor. Is what I was saying. So,
Mike, going back to that question raised about how high.
How high?
Yeah. How high do you set?
If I can set it on a forest blade, if I can set it high on a rip operation, I will. Cross cutting, I usually don't worry too much about. I'll set it. I usually like to have 3 to 5 teeth above the workpiece. Anybody? What? Anybody else? 3 to 5 teeth above the workpiece is a general rule for setting the height of your blade on a 10-inch saw.
The blade becomes adhesive.
Yeah, the blade becomes adhesive.
You want to get it up as high as
That's
possible
right.
so there's a cooling of the air.
That's right. You want it to cool, so the higher you set your blade, the better. It just, if you're doing 1-inch rips, it becomes very dangerous unless you go out and get this beautiful device here. which some people have shot me, but this is a great thing. You guys come and look at this again. I got to say that show.
Running the solar 220 voltage is a lot better than
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Running, he said, running a saw at 220 voltage, more energy efficient, better. Also very important when you're setting up your saw is to make sure before you do your operations is to set it perpendicular to your saw bed. So I use an engineer square, which aren't always entirely accurate. I think, Paul, you could probably test this. The higher price you pay for it, the more accurate it will be. This is like a $5 or $6 engineer square. I've tested it with other really good squares, Swedish squares, and it was good. So if I drop it, I'll throw it in the garbage. But for the time being, this is what I use to set the parallel. Try to get light behind you when you set it.
One more time.
And never set it on the tube.
And never set it on the tube, right. Make sure you're working with a nice clean, nice straight blade to flatten it. If you get light behind you, go ahead. If you get light behind you, then you'll know when you're square or not. You could also cross-cut a piece of wood perfectly, perfectly 90 degrees, and use that. Set that up. I use a nice long piece, and that enables you to also set your favorite angle to one side. If you have it set to a specific angle, and I use my cross-cut sled to get this jig, this 80, then I can always set it to that angle just using a piece of stable wood.
Cut a piece of wood, fat piece of wood, and then you turn it the other way.
Yeah, there's a million ways to test the square. And as he was just saying, if you cross-cut a piece with your miter gauge, this device here, which I hardly ever use, because I got the sleds, and this you want to make sure is 90. Most people will just turn it upside down on the front of their saw if you don't have the fence in the way, and it's pretty true and accurate reading that way. Most of these are machine square, but check it as many ways as you can to make sure you got a perfect 90. But again, the same way you do that, you just cross-cut a piece, take those two pieces, flip over one, put it next to each other. If you've got a perfect joint, you know you're 90. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do that, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time on that part of it. Miter gauge should be fairly snug in here. Some of them you can peen and make it fit into the miter slot better, but you really don't want a lot of slot in there. It should run really well. But I would recommend for cross-cutting that you use a sled, either homemade. Oh, Charlie, I was just about to put this on. I want to do it all night. I've made a lot of cross-cutting sleds in my time, and they're very easy to make. But you lose accuracy on them.
Go back to Yield House, get another one.
This design that Dubby came up with is genius to me. It's genius. It's so simple. It's just a piece of 5/8" melamine with a nice stable piece of ash, and the way he designed it is that you can move the fence any way you want and have very, very accurate angle measurements based on a rule on the side here. You guys got to look at this later. I added a tape to the top so I can set the adjustable slide fence. Yeah. Okay, so this you can get set up to like 50 inches, I think it is, this way, and as small as you want. And this is probably now they're copying it. Jointech, I think, at the show I saw Jointech copied it. Incra has one that's very close to it, but W's the original, and I would support him because he's a small company. And I feel for people ripping them off. He's still in business. Except one exception is they don't make the wooden fence anymore. It's now aluminum. I like the wood because it's wood. And if you have it in your budget, the best thing you could do is go out and get another one for the right side.
Mike, can I borrow $20 from you? Apply for the grant. Hey, Bob, watch him.
And I have the stabilizer on, and it's very hard. That's why it's not spinning. They run about 150. Yeah, if you buy the pair, we'll give you a discount. We'll give you a better price. And then, very quickly, a nice thick piece of stable white oak, just screwed into there. I got it now. My perfect cross-cutting fence.
Do you screw that white oak into it?
Screw the white oak right into the back of the ash.
And the Teflon
Check
tape
it
on
straight
the
out.
box really helps.
Yeah,
Teflon tape.
is it Teflon? They call it something else too. It's a high molecular plastic. No, there's a plastic tape on here that provides a very slick surface. Yeah, you can do that with any of your crosscut studs.
Mike,
Yeah.
the yolk, no.
So that's my tie-in. So if I'm cross-cutting a piece, I'll cut it square here, slide it over, and cut it to length here. It's great. I can use the fence on this side too. Great thing. Now, if I'm doing angle, if I'm cutting miters and I need cross-cut miters, I won't use this simply because you won't get a clean cut. I could tilt this blade and it'll cut, using just this side. But without a zero clearance, you won't get as clean a cut. So what I generally would do is make another cross-cutting sled just for that, and make that fence used just for that purpose. So you have that zero tolerance cut. Does everybody know what I mean by zero tolerance, zero clearance? Okay, good. And no matter what you do, make sure you have these on. Make sure you have them on, because you'll be sorry. If you haven't seen this before, this is the Japanese combination square. Excellent for setting up a perfect 45 tilt on your saw. Don't ever rely on your thing. When you're cutting raised panels, instead of tilting the blade and setting a high fence that is parallel to your fence, you can make the fence itself on the angle and keep the blade straight up, perpendicular to the saw. But sometimes making the jig takes just as much time as getting the saw reset. If you're really good at resetting your saw back to 90 and 45, then for me, for instance, I wouldn't take the time to make a jig for that. I would just cut the angle. But absolutely, there's two ways. There's no right and wrong way to do it. For instance, as far as jigs go, I didn't bring a whole bunch, but this is a typical fence jig that you just clamp to your fence. And what I use this for is for making pins. No, I use this for the raised panels. I'll just set the blade to 8 degrees in my case.